The name of the book that I read for my independent reading project is Monster by Walter Dean Myers. And my initial reaction and or prediction about the book was that it was probably going to be about whoever he is. And he's been incarcerated for a serious crime, and now people are starting to call him a monster. One of the first things that I noticed about this book upon reading it was that it's not written in the traditional format that a novel is written in. The entire book is written as a script, and I thought that was really unique. The main characters, or the main character in the book, is Steve Harmon. He's the one that is, like the prime suspect in the entire trial. There are others on trial as well, but he and his friend James King are the main ones. Steve is represented by Kathy O'Brien, the defense attorney, and James is represented by Asia Briggs, but she's not mentioned until a little bit later on in the book. Sandra Petricelli, she's the prosecuting attorney, and she represents the state of New York in the trial. I didn't have any initial judgments on the characters except for Steve, and my judgment about Steve was that he was probably guilty and was, trying to seem as innocent as possible and basically feed the jury a sob story so that, they feel sympathetic for him and vote him in his favor. Some of my favorite quotes from the book, sorry. One of my favorite quotes from the book is early in the beginning of the novel. Before the trial even started, Steve and his attorney, O'Brien, were in the courtroom, and the trial hadn't started yet, and they're talking, and Steve asks his attorney, do you think we're going to win? And her response was that it depends on what you mean by win, and that her only job was to make sure that the law works for as well as against him, and that her goal throughout the entire trial was to make him appear human in the eyes of the jury, because the crime that he's been accused of doing is very heinous and could only be committed by a monster. Another quote is from Sandra Petricelli, the prosecuting attorney, her opening statement, and she says that the court is dealing with not only a case of murder, but it's a case of murder within an already felonious crime. So what was supposed to be a simple robbery turned into now a murder trial. I really like Sandra's opening statement because she very vividly describes the events that occurred the day of the murder, and she gives great detail on who was involved in it, from her understanding who was involved in it. The murder victim, his name is Alguinado Nesbitt, and he's 55 years old. He was a convenience store clerk. And Sandra's opening statement, the key focus of it is that she represents the people and she stands for justice. So she closes her statement basically pointing the finger at James and Steve, you know, really emphasizing the fact that she definitely knows that they had something to do with Mr. Nesbitt's murder. O'Brien's opening statement, however, doesn't really address Petrocelli's. Her opening statement focuses on how, generally speaking, laws protect everyone. So criminals as well as law-abiding citizens. And that the evidence the state, meaning Petrocelli, has against Steve and James is not, it's not credible and it's flawed. So God, James, you just threw me all off. You just threw me all off. God. Okay. Oh, based off of their opening statements, I gathered that Petrocelli is very bold because she did not sugarcoat anything. She let the entire court know how things happened on that day, from every event leading up to the murder and afterwards. And that she's pretty much certain that, you know, she's gonna win the trial. She knows that she has the ability to win the trial, and the so-called evidence that she has against Steve and James as well is enough to make the jury vote guilty for the both of them. O'Brien she seems very doubtful to me in you know, a victory. She doesn't think that she can win it, because when it is a murder trial, you know, people's natural reaction is, you know, oh, they're guilty. You know, whoever is on the defense is guilty. So she seems very doubtful. After O'Brien gives her opening statement, we're finally introduced to Asia Briggs, who is Steve's defense attorney. And her opening statement includes everyone else involved in the crime other than Steve and James, and we meet the only eyewitness in the case, and his name is Jose Delgado, and he gets interrogated by Petrocelli first and then Briggs. So the others who were included in the trial, who are, you know, also on trial, are Richard Evans, or Bobo, Osvaldo Cruz, and Sal Zinzi. And they're all friends of Steve and James, and they're all pretty much in the same situation as Steve and James. However, their situations are slightly different because, in my opinion, the situation that they are all in is a little bit more complicated. And the reason I say that is because they basically have to snitch on their friends just to get, you know, just to save themselves. And that's unfortunately what most people do when the law is involved. So they've all made deals with the district attorney's office, and in the hopes that they will get either, you know, no time, reduced time, or, you know, just parole. So they're all in it for themselves, basically. Oh, so yeah, basically all that in a nutshell is that they have their own motives for their for the reason that they're testifying. The trial isn't consistent in the least bit throughout this entire book. It goes in and out of Steve's flashbacks from his childhood or the day of his of the murder. He took part in the murder. And it also goes in and out of his journal entries that he wrote while he was in prison. And he really does not like prison. There are about 5 consistent entries in this book that solely focus on his hatred for prison. And he actually says it in the first entry that